Welcome back, mere mortalites, to another edition of the Mere Mortals Conversations. We're back at it again. Today, I had the privilege and the joy to talk to somebody who I have known for a little while. I haven't talked to him for a long time, but he came up on my LinkedIn and just in the current new stream of cryptocurrency, of NFTs, of DeFi, and I thought this individual is someone I've got to talk to. Lucas Cullen is someone who I knew back in 2014, 2015, and he's someone who got involved, heavily involved, let's say, in cryptocurrency all the way back in early 2010, 2011. So in this conversation, I basically asked all the questions that I wanted to ask around cryptocurrency, around Bitcoin, what it had done to his life, how it had changed the things that he was doing, and surprisingly, a little giveaway, not too much. He's actually still pursuing the things that he loves the most. So obviously tune in to see what the changes have been for Lucas's life. At the same time, you'll get to see what hasn't changed at all from him. So he's very much a developer at heart, Ethereum developer. I wanted to actually read out some of his background just so you get an idea before we get into it. He is a blockchain developer, lead blockchain SME. He was a blockchain gun, a board member of Blockchain Australia, blockchain developer, another developer in Barcard Australia, chief technology advisor, Bitcoin engineer, and it goes on and on and on. He hosts the pretty popular Bitcoin Brisbane, so he's a Bitcoin consultant and developer there, and also runs quite a lot of things across NFT, DeFi, and all the rest of it. So if you've been hearing it on the news and you want to know a little bit more about cryptocurrency, this might be the one for you. But we also dive into other things around personal matters, how it affected his kids, and everything in between. So I hope you enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Lucas Cullen. Well, man, I want to actually begin the conversation with Bitcoin Grandpa.
All right.
From Brisbane.
Yep.
Where'd you get that nickname from? So I know, prior to actually having this conversation with you guys, I thought, okay, I haven't seen you for a very, very long time. I'll listen to a couple of other podcasts that you've been to for a long time ago. Yep. And I think the last one was like in the 2019 one, but I heard that being said and I remember reading it somewhere else. So where did that come from?
I guess probably a couple of boys at the meetup. I think it might have actually been Caleb from Travel by Bit. So just, I guess, trying to get some nicknames. There was, Bitcoin Jesus and a few other names. So yeah, I think I just got Bitcoin Grandpa. Someone coined the term and stuck a little bit. So,
yeah, and as we were saying, you've got a little bit of salt and pepper coming through now from what, we've saw each other from a very long time ago. But look, Ben, the first question I want to ask you, because Bitcoin, I think if it's something that we talked about 5 years ago, a lot of individuals would say, what is this? Maybe as that 2017 peak started to go, people cared about it, maybe it came away from sort of the public media. And nowadays, whether it's some of the altcoins, Bitcoin, whatever it may be, it was all sort of in the mind of people. It's in the media. How did you come across knowing about Bitcoin all the way back in 2011, 2010?
Yeah, there's a couple of stories I tell. I've told this story a fair few times. So it really goes back to when I went to the UK. I was there 2002 to 2007 or 8. Okay. And at the time, the London Underground used paper tickets, which if you knew a little bit about a tech, let's say you could copy them. Let's say some people did. And then they brought out the Oyster card, which is a chip-based technology. So some of us started looking at brute forcing those weak keys on them, like 64-bit keys on them. So long story short, we were attempting to double spend electronic currency in the form of travel credits. So 2008, I got back to Brisbane. Good old Queensland Rail still had the paper tickets. Started a engineering job. We had a bit of a laugh about how backwards Australian technology is. The conversation went on to about electronic cash in generally. And a good mate, Scotty, who was actually at the first meetup and has been to every meetup since, said, go read Bruce Schneider's Applied Cryptography book, which talks about double spend and electronic cash and the problems with that. So I did. And that was, like I said, 2008, 2009. And then working at Bank of Queensland 2010-11, there's just on one of the news feeds popped up Bitcoin and they mentioned double spend. So I said, look, I've got some prior experience with this in the field, so to speak. And looked at it and said, this is a pretty innovative way to stop the double spend. Yeah. So, like, anyone like with any technologist bought some purely just to play with it, and then just went from there. So
for people who, because this is often the case now when you talk to people, and it is just so easily consumable. You can buy Bitcoin in portions, right? 0.0001 Bitcoin. You can buy it. What is the smaller currency of it?
Satoshi.
A Satoshi, right?
Yeah.
So, but back then, how were you actually purchasing those Bitcoins?
Yeah, that's another interesting story too, because I've got a bit of an entrepreneur in me. So at the time it was $5, and it was being sold on eBay, and working at Bank of Queensland. You're sitting on a computer all day, so I just bid on some of these auctions. Oh no, sorry. Actually, what was happening is there was an exchange in Australia that we could just go to over the counter, put $5 in, just give the teller a reference. And then they just deposit Bitcoin into your wallet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so there's no KYC. So you just went online.
Yeah.
Hey, here's my address. They gave you a code, went to the teller. So
amazing.
Each payday from BOQ, I'd walk down from level whatever it was down to the branch downstairs and buy a bit. And then what I was noticing is that there seems to be a spread. They were selling for $6 on eBay. So that's a 20% markup.
Yeah.
So like the entrepreneur will, okay, do the PayPal fees, whatever. So I called my mate up and I said, just help me, because he's a bit of a not a grifter, but someone who likes to look for an opportunity.
Yeah.
I called him up and said, can you just review my math here? Like I'm sitting on a desk, buy $5, walk downstairs, sell it for $6 kind of thing. I said, should we buy 10 to try it? He goes, well, fuck it, buy 100.
Yeah, might as well just give it a go.
So he did. And then the first auction I put on, the price started going up and it got to about $31. And I'm like, this is getting crazy. And then eBay sent me an email saying you can't sell digital goods on eBay, of digital delivery, like basically like iTunes. And I didn't know enough about the currency and how it worked. But then what I worked out people were doing, they're printing out their private key and then posting them.
Right.
So it's a physical delivery on that, and that's how they swept it out.
Gotcha.
So anyway, I didn't really know. I was just playing around with it. And like I said, looking for spreads. And then, like I said, eBay closed my auctions. And I said, oh, shit, what am I going to do with these coins now? And I said the price went up and, best thing that ever happened.
So for you, and, we're talking here, Bitcoin $5, buying a few here and there. The mentality, because, you look at the numbers today, and obviously we've gone through a pretty massive rise over the last couple of years. The mentality obviously wasn't like that back then. And it was really the people who loved technology and wanted to just play around with something. As you're talking about, if you had maybe mathematics background, financial background, you went, this seems interesting, let's play around with it. In those first few years, when it's not just, it's difficult to purchase it sometimes and to hold on to them. What was that mentality when it's still fluctuating up and down quite rapidly to kind of hold on to it? Like, what was the premise of holding onto it back in those earlier sort of years? Yeah,
well, besides like I said, trying to play a bit of a spread, buying for $1 and selling for $2 is the oldest business model ever. But it was really just nothing really as a financial instrument, just like I said, playing and holding, and then the number was going up. And, I don't mind a punt now and again. So, like I said, if you bought 100 at $5 and you lost it all, I mean, that's just a typical bad loss of the casino.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really matter. So I was like, $500 not going to break the bank. Yeah, and then like I said, then it just started going up and stuff. I said, maybe this. And I just remember at the time, I think Apple shares were about 500. And I remember a friend saying, I'll buy Apple shares at 7. So I kind of had that range in my head. And I was saying as friends, if it ever hit $1,000, that's going to be the top. So I thought, Apple shares multiplied by 2, and that's about as much logic. And then, selling off along the way and always taking a win. But yeah, I know it's just holding on. And, I remember some of the meetups of 2013 and 14, and I think I was thinking it was late then, it was getting up to $400 and, not regrets, but you just start thinking about things. But yeah, I don't know. It was nothing. It was never really looking at it as a massive gain, and the prices we've seen are just ridiculous by any stretch of the imagination. So yeah, I don't know, just fun journey.
Yeah, and I think the sustainability aside of the prices and the fluctuation, that's one thing. And I think a lot of people might focus on when you're talking about any crypto at this stage, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum. We're talking just before off air, Sheeb, SafeMoon, all this sort of things. Sure, you can make 10,000% or whatever you want to call percent in a couple of days and make all these profits. Something I probably haven't heard too much about is the community. So you talk about I'm going to go specific here, the Australian community. I don't know how much you knew about maybe the global community even back then. You said that it seems like the community that was built here in Australia seems to still be there even today. What was the difference of, those sort of community in 2013, 2014 and those that you see today? Like, has there been a massive change in those original holders and the way that they interact and the way you guys connect?
Well, the first ones were like really spruiking it, like going on Bitcoin talk and stuff. And like I said, my friend Scotty, like trying to, it's kind of like getting that critical mass at a party. Hey, get your mates down so it doesn't look lame when people turn up, and roping, people into it. We just started out with like just at the pub meetup. And then I was like, well, like kind of been to a lot of tech meetups, all the .NET stuff and that from way back in the day. And what I dislike going to those meetups is you're giving up a night, you're going along, and if it's just shilling like, some Telerik widget or, not to harp on about Octopus Deploy, but, they're selling their product, something like that. And I was always, well, that you give up your time to go to that. And I don't want to just be sales. So I said, look, I find value going and learn about, .NET framework or something, a new feature, and I got value from that. So I thought at that point I'll make the decision to be pretty much educational and just go from there. And like, and it kind of forces you to study a little bit more and then present that back in a format which people can understand, which increases your understanding of the subject. But there's always a way. There's some really early adopters, libertarians and bit of hippies and people using it to literally to buy stuff on Silk Road and wanting to get in, and that's to me that's their choice on what they do. And then just basically showing people how to use wallets and all that thing, and just really connecting people up. And then they're just from then. But I think the dynamics and diversity are the same. Obviously now when price goes up, people want to try and get into speculate, not going back to the core tech, but I'm always trying to be like how to look for scams, how to buy safely, how to store it, how to back up, how to recover. Just those kind of things. But people come and go. Some people have been there from day one. Some come in, never see them again. Get what they want, move on, which is cool. And then sometimes, Christmas party and those kind of social events.
They kind of sort of bring it back. It's not so aggressive, but I do remember that's the first time I ever heard of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency was the Silk Road sort of conversation. And back in the day when you would get a tour or get Onion website and then you'd be able to go see, what's going on in the dark web. That was the first sort of interaction for me of, okay, that's what Bitcoin is. Okay, cool. I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I also got into it a little bit early. We're getting back to the BOQ and reading the double spend, because when I was in the UK, I was working for online commerce, and the amount of fraud and chargebacks we got, PayPal were just unapproachable. No one would ever email you back when things got, reversed. They just ripped the money out of your account. It was just like, that was so bad. And then when I thought about it, like a way to transact cash on the internet, I thought this was really going to take off. And that's where I kind of pivoted or put my focus in payments on the internet, but
it's not where it
didn't work out. So,
but it's amazing you say that, because I similarly, so I worked at obviously in Accenture, and there's a lot of talk, I think now dating back to 2014, 2015, but we're talking blockchain, banks, like this is going to be the next big thing, and there's a lot of investment going down that path, and I think it still continues, but it's not where it ultimately maybe took off and really saw either where the media limelight is or where a lot of the work ended up going to. My so based on the community, so it's good to sort of reflect that point. And I think I also want to touch base. You're sort of a developer at heart, so that's how I know you. You used to work in the same workplace. You were a developer then, obviously moved on and did a lot of other things. But you still sort of hold yourself as a developer, and we were talking about this previously. So you're looking after. There's a lot of things that you do, and I want to sort of touch base on a couple of them. But with the developer sort of mindset to it, do you find yourself that even now moving forward, you wouldn't be tempted to say, okay, look, I'm happy, I'm going to step back and do nothing? You still seem to be actively participating and wanting to just get involved. Why do you think that is, like, for you personally?
Well, if you like tech, I mean, it's just, it's a kid in a candy store. Like, we just had the Ethereum meetup where Pete from Consensus was talking about layer 2. And there's so much, technology, like so many things and so many competitors and so many things to choose and things to study and learn. And I don't know, it's just like, I was talking to a couple of guys just before this, everyone's approachable. Like the layer 2 guys, everyone's approachable. If you want to be part of a team, you can get on a team, you can literally help build the future. Like, you're one pull request for contributing to something that might change the world.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't excite you, I don't know what will. So I've worked with developers who just do 9 to 5 and go home and I don't know, do what other normal people do. I go home and write code and study and other things. And like I said to you before, I just get totally bored if I'm not coding and inventing. And there's languages and different languages coming out for like Starkware and which are Pythonic based. It just goes on and on. Like open source explosion. I don't know. It's just such a fun time to be alive. Yeah.
Do you find personally that you have either friends that you knew from, let's say 2008 to today that just don't understand that? Because I can imagine a lot of people who just wouldn't understand that, right? That you'd go, oh, well, you were there in the early days. You don't have to do this. You can just go and relax and do something else.
Yeah.
Well, how do handle those conversations if you do have them?
No, I don't really have those conversations.
Okay.
I mean, I can choose how much I want to work, but I still, I think it's still, I kind of make the analogy. I think it's like being a professional footballer. Like you just go in the field every day and just loving what you do. And I just feel that way now. And, you're probably getting to a point where you probably shouldn't be playing. You should probably retire, but then drop back to the resis or something and keep going. But, I don't know how other people, I guess, value their time different ways. But, I just like to code and develop and try and build some of the stuff, and contribute back. And, it's quite personally satisfying. You got a project in, you see other people using it, see other people forking it, making pull requests in. It's kind of nurture something and grow. And I know you get a bit of personal satisfaction out of that.
No, definitely. Yeah. And I think it's, this goes through in a lot of books and other things that I've obviously read about. And it's, if you were just sitting away on your own on like, say, a tropical island or whatever it may be, you will either find something to suffer for it. Like you'll find your own suffering in it and all the perfection, or you'll have to find something that you have to struggle with. That's just sort of life. And if you're already doing something that you intrinsically find a struggle that you pose forward on it while you're doing a project or something that you enjoy, why not do that? Like what would be the reason to not be doing that and then just choose to go and do something else?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, in some projects, like I've been working on like my compiler for like 3 years. It's probably never going to see the light of day. You're up at midnight and you think, why am I doing this? But then you get to the weekend, you start, maybe I should pick it up again.
Yeah.
I don't know, but most of the things too, there's always intangible outcomes that come from it. Like, sometimes you pick a technology or do something and then later in your life it'll pop up just randomly and, okay, I've had an experience with that maybe from a job point of view or just a conversation or whatever. So it's interesting how, if you're playing and build things and it just has some other repercussions later in life. So whether it's coding or fitness or whatever, like you said, just something else like you do outside of the day to day. Sometimes things will just come up that because you've done it, like back to the London Underground, just because we tinkered with that and we lit that fire. If we hadn't have done that, we might not have been here. So it's funny how things work out.
Yeah, for sure. Just a question for yourself. In terms of excitement then, so what we are, let's just say where we are today, right? Because it went through its highs, might have been lows, whatever it may be. Do you find yourself personally, where does the excitement lie in the, the next 5-10 years ahead in the, whether you want to talk crypto space or the Ethereum space, whatever it may be, and then maybe tie that back to what you're doing now, like sort of those different businesses and different things that you're actually pursuing at the moment?
Yeah, so I think I still think we're a little bit early. It gets thrown around a bit, but it's still very early internet days and where we can develop this stuff too, if we all work on it, excites me. Like what could the future be, whether it's from a political point of view, whether we can, disrupt government in a good way, like maybe reduce, as we know, we both worked at ATO, there's a lot of inefficiencies within large enterprise and organizations. Especially with like ATO where it's taxpayers' money, and where should that be appropriated? Should government be more open and transparent? What kind of democracy do we want? There's different models of democracy. Should everyone have the right to vote? Should we vote on specific topics? Like we can just change everything, which can have a big impact on society and how we do it. Like, I disagree with so many decisions. Like I think Australia could be very wealthy. Like Norway, we've got all this resources. We had like a sovereign fund, but as a people, should we have a say in that? And I think with, a transparent voting mechanism and using this technology, we can have some massive impacts on society. So that's one thing, that I'm very optimistic that we realize the potential in that way, and maybe shake out some of the, as Trumpy said, drain the swamp. So just from the, like I said, the innovation on layer 2 on hand scaling, which is a really good engineering problem to solve. So if you're like solving engineering problems, we've got so many to work through. Like to see what the future could be. Just start and challenge everything. Do we need banking? And to your point, or to your question, sorry, some of the projects, working on some NFT stuff. We're doing work with one of the guys I work with. We did Deadmau5 and Weezer NFTs. So working, some of the big industries now are coming on, which is exciting to see this getting in the hands of these early adopters. All kinds of little, fringe benefits. So that's, I guess, now coming out of the theory into the application is what's interesting now, and seeing where that can go.
Yeah, I've heard the word being thrown around by those sort of techno king people of Web 3.0. Yeah, this is kind of like those feelings of what it was like back in Web 2.0 days. This is sort of the new stuff to come along, and potentially it's not that everything's going to be here to stay. Similarly when we went through the sort of .com sort of space, things came out, some things crashed, but then some of the stuff remained and continued on. This is going to be obviously a personal question, but I think a lot of people who in the podcast I've been listening to, we've been talking about this a lot, NFTs, specifically NFTs. I just want to kind of get your point of view on them. Obviously, you've been working through the projects like you're doing in NFTs. Where's that space at the moment? If I look at it maybe from an Australian perspective, where does that sit? And where is the possibilities there that you see that are just ripe for the taking at the moment?
Yeah, interesting. My number plate is actually ERC 721. So I got in early. Now the joke's starting to be realised. Anyone who sees me driving around, so the Hilux is a collectible. So it's a subtle little bit of a joke there. But now it's coming. People are starting to get the joke. There's a few things we're a bit passionate about. I think art is an interesting domain for collectibles. We've seen Pokemon cards and those kind of things, limited edition runs, limited prints. That's been part and parcel in art forever. But it always comes up, well, how do you know that there's only one of 200? You're always trusting someone. So this adds a little bit of transparency to that. When with Accenture we had the Treasury Wines as a client, and we're pitching to them actually back in the day, 2016, 15 or something. Limited run vintages and really asserting that year. And all kinds of things there, like to counterfeit, which NFT is just a standard on a blockchain based contract. Like the premise is still the same of blockchain, that traceability, auditability, those kind of properties, temper resistant. So it's now really that standard has been ratified or semi-ratified and kicked off, and people are noticing it. Now we're trying to apply it to different domains and industries. So I think art and wine collectibles are the ones that really stick out. Does it make sense on a pair of sneakers? I know some people maybe value that. I don't know, but these are the things, what people value is different, what people are willing to pay. So interesting. And that's I guess where the exciting part is, what will shake out. But I think it's going to be pretty common in the future. Like our kids will look back and say, what, you really had a paper certificate of authenticity?
Well, exactly right.
What was this, Dad? What are you talking about?
The comparables that I've been seeing into is, I haven't personally played Fortnite, but the kids who play Fortnite and then you buy digital skins and whatnot, it's going to be like, well, why would you buy, whatever it may be? And I've heard it in, this super long-term view of, imagine it's virtual reality, you're spending virtual reality for 4 hours time and you're buying your digital shirt on there. So it's basically could be an NFT equivalent that you utilize in the digital world. Just with NFTs, smart contracts, something that's been around quite a long time and also sort of going through the space at the moment quite rapidly, or is it sort of few and far between still?
Oh, well, an NFT is I guess a type of smart contract. So they are, I guess, synonymous. Like all NFTs are smart contracts, but not smart contracts are not NFTs. So I guess it's probably, like I said, a good segue into that. where the contract terms are, like I said, limited run, that they can only be 500, and that's inspectable to a certain degree via the code. So like I said, it's probably a good starting point. And I guess just a little bit more on the NFT, just a thought there. Like anyone who's had the mispleasure of buying a diamond, they always go and they always claim this GIA certified, that's their big thing, and you get this paper certificate. What does that mean? And then the salesperson's like, oh, it's GIA certified. Like you're just in a cyclic reference now, and it comes back to what I always say. It's the same people that issue the certificate, the same people you have to trust, right? If you can't see a problem with that model, then I can't help you. So it's now taking that away and making that a little bit more transparent, or a lot more transparent. So I don't know. There's lots of interesting things coming.
Yeah, and I think it's a trust aspect. So I was saying to you before we started the podcast. For me, so very recently, there's a project by Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, but basically he's a techno individual marketing space in the US, and he came out with a couple of NFTs called VFriends. And in a similar vein, he set it up in the way that you buy one of these tokens, which essentially he just drew up, and you will get access to a conference that he will host for the next 3 years as admission. So obviously there's that paired up with the fact that you get this art piece. And like for me, it was just so interesting to see, obviously not just the aspect of an NFT or like some sort of art, but it was that backing of, okay, something that you get in the real world utilizing, and just what you could do just beyond that, and maybe the possibilities that could come from that.
Yeah, and like the other, I guess, use case I make reference to, it's not really an NFT, but if you think about it, it kind of is I really dislike the airline industry where you buy a seat and, okay, you want to change your flight, and it's more expensive to change your flight than just to buy a new ticket. It's like this fee and that fee. And why? We, as consumers, we must ask why. That is my claim to that seat on that plane, and as the consumer, I should have the right to use that or transfer that.
Yeah.
So if all your airline seats were an NFT, you could trade them, right? I can't go on this flight. Do you want to trade them? There's no security.
Definitely.
There's no security concern, because when you walk up, you present your ID and your boarding pass. But then what you do have is a digital certificate that says, I have a right to be on this plane. So I think we should start really disrupting the industries and take away all those stupid pain points that we see. And any workflow-based industries, again, a good example for smart contracts, where if something doesn't happen within so many days, then some penalty applies, whether it's real estate or whatever industry is. So those are the opportunities I think now we're looking towards smart contracts. If you don't pay your rent or something, some kind of penalty that can happen. So when there's a monetary instrument and a time frame, I think those are the next industries that will be, starting to play in this space. And if we can digitize a dollar, which, there are stable coins around that, then, it starts to really open up opportunities. One of the clients I was actually working for is quite interesting, and this is, pretty innovative. They pay you in what you call streams. So you're basically getting paid continuously every second.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So as an individual, one wants to pay his rent, okay, you just take it off the queue. The onus is on the individual or the employee to take the money as when they appropriate it, not when the payroll company says you get paid monthly, which is just an arbitrary time period. Yeah. But because of the burden of payroll officers, that's just a cadence that makes sense. But get rid of payroll and just get paid as streams.
Well, exactly right. Yeah, it's like we're constrained by the payroll system and how it's set up in the individuals. Yeah. But
I plan a big Friday night, so I take my money now, or vice versa. So there's so much little things that are going to come out once you start, digitizing money and making contract based. Then like I said, it's going to be so much cool innovations
to come out from it. No, I was saying before as well, I think I looked at it a long time ago, sort of thought, I want to look into it. And just the amount of people that are either around me that are talking about it and seeing it personally, now I go, okay, there's obviously something else that's happening here, is creating a lot of interest. Another question for you, maybe personally, and again, contrasting, 2008, 2010, Lucas to today. What did success to you look like back then, before anything, right, to what today looks like for you? Has it changed much at all?
Yeah. So the company I came back to after the UK, where I met Scotty, and we're talking about the Bruce Schneider book, was a little software shop out of Milton's, probably 10 or 12 guys, and I still catch up with a lot of guys. A lot of them now. It was a good little crew, good little size, and and it was kind of, that was the dream of get a dev shop like that, a good bunch of guys and girls, and just deliver. And now with a business partner that was actually out of TSA, we're now hitting that 12 or 13 person mark. So it's funny, it's just cropped up with the demand. And it's like, well, this is kind of the dream. And, you quote, you made it if you got that. And now it's just
organically sort of happening.
Exactly. Without, we've never taken any equity, any capital. It's just organic growth, just time and materials, which is an interesting, but like I said, we're going to pivot into more products. But yeah, like I said, that was what success looks like. If you asked myself 10 years ago, and now we're kind of exceeding that. So I don't know, do you see yourselves aim high, or are you happy with that? Or I know these are some of the personal challenges now, but with scaling comes problem, HR, complexity, and that's office space.
Yeah, and I think that's also the question that rings true to my mind, because I had a conversation with Nick Blair as well, and he sold his company in 2017 to, it escapes my mind, but he sold it for a good sum of money, I think $30+ million. And he took a little time off, bought the cars he wanted, did what he wanted, and now he's kind of getting back into business because he wants to get back into business. And getting back into business or running a shop, whatever it may be, like there's work there, like there's work and there's going to be pains and whatnot. Do you find that sort of scaling of a company, that's something that you're like, yes, I want to do this because the challenge that's there and the success that it might present seems to me like it's worth it?
I wouldn't say that. It's a bit more at the moment. It's just so demand for this technology and NFTs and DeFi products that we're just taking on that as we can, because just it's not hard to say no. It's just trying to service the industry, and that's fine. The scaling, I know it's a bit frightening. Like I said, once you get up to those numbers, but I don't know. We'll just take it, I guess, day by day. But that's not really the ambition. It's just to I guess find a niche and deliver well, and I guess try and get a bit of a name in the industry from delivery. And that's another, I guess, definition of success. So, and then try and make a bit of a living out of it and enjoy what we do. And take people along the journey. And I guess when you start your own company and business, as it's like all those places you didn't like working for. Now it's on you.
Now it's like,
well, hang on, you bitched about your bosses. Well, no, guess what? Are you the best boss in the world? So
and not when it's you're in your absolute best spirits and everything's going well. No, when when you're stressed out, when things aren't going well. That's when it matters.
Yep. All the things that make employees. So it's that growing up. Look, do you have the right employment environment? You're paying people well. All the stuff. Is the work good? But and trying to, I guess, mentor people and grow them, and not be naive that employees will move on. So I really try and foster them in agile and all the other stuff that makes them good engineers, and business development and talking to clients and taking leadership and ownership. We really try and pride ourselves on being accountable and adults, and hopefully they grow and move on or stay. So they're the other, I guess, other assets that come out of it.
Where do you find as well from actually developing on, whether it's blockchain or NFTs or anything else? Because I know personally I've talked to developers who have interest in it, and they kind of go, oh well, this seems like it's very, very different from a even technical development point of view. Is it very different from what maybe someone who's been working on a mid-range or front end type developing to move into that space? Is it difficult?
I guess it's real. I mean, the good news is one of the languages on Ethereum, Solidity, it's very JavaScript based, so feels like JavaScript, but it's very a subset. So you've kind of got to go back a long way to all the maturity of the new languages you don't get with Solidity, so you got to dumb it down a little bit. I guess the biggest thing is working out what to put on chain and what to not put on chain. There's pros and cons for both, as you probably understand. And then it's still slow to a degree, and it's still a bit clunky, and it's a bit hard to test. But those tools are getting better to do that. So I guess the real trick is trying to find what to put on chain, where that sweet spot is, meet client expectations. And some people, I guess, just don't get it. Like, so, why put this on chain? We could put it in a database, and that's a good question. So,
why?
Why? Yeah. So, yeah, I guess just working through all those things. But, if a client's got a brief and they want it on chain, then it's easy. But if you're building your own product, then it's a little bit different. So, but like I said, the good news is there's so much frameworks and tooling out there. It's not like 5 years ago, I should say.
Yeah,
it was all a bit clunky. But
there's maturity now where you can kind of jump in and go, okay, well, there's something. There's a framework here. Or there's at least a community that understands it. It's not like, oh, well, we don't know either. It's like we're still trying to figure this out.
Yeah, there's structured courses. The blockchain collective guys, run stuff out at TAFE, and it's really starting to get there. So it's probably a good time to jump in and start learning.
Yeah, for sure. One last question that I've always loved to ask someone who was there in the very, very beginning of Bitcoin, and especially because you have kids, is do you as a dad, do you try to teach them around cryptocurrency? Not so much specifically Bitcoin, but just for them, I guess they're at the age now, just under 10, to teach them a little bit of what crypto, do they understand that at that age?
Yeah, it's funny because I was surprised too. Like when I think my son was 3 or 4, we got him like a Bitcoin. Well, there was one of these Bitcoin dolls from one of the guys down in Melbourne that were doing it. I forget what they call themselves. So I had one of them, and they just kind of grew up. So it's just kind of household word. I just mentioned just saying it.
Yep.
Now, like my son's 9, so he watches like Mr. Beast and those kind of YouTubers, and they mention Bitcoin and. I don't think he understands. He goes, "Oh, do you work for Bitcoin?" I was, well, yes and no. I built on it, but there's no Bitcoin companies. So he's still trying to wrap his head around that. But I think I said with the mainstream YouTubers talking about it, they're exposed to it that way as well. And I don't know, maybe I get a bit of creds around the schoolyard. I don't know. Like I was working for one of the games studios. I was wanting to actually get that because building games on blockchain would be pretty cool. And, give your son some bragging rights around the school. I don't know, but no, I think they grow up with it. So,
but it just makes me think. We're talking about the future and what will be, right? But to me, I go, there's kids out there who are 10, 12 years old who are growing up knowing this as like the back of the hand. Like this is just what it is, what the world of today is. And as you're saying, moving into the future, it's like, oh, why would you want a paper ticket? Like, why would you need anything like this? To the point that, there's going to be so inbuilt with that it's going to come up with things we still don't even think it was going to happen in the next 10, 15 years. Yeah.
So, I mean, now, they both, it's a bit ashamed to say it, but they both got iPads, love or hate. Like, actually in their school curriculum, they have iPads now.
Yeah.
So, I'm probably going to set them up multi-signal wallets. I've got them a couple of Bitcoins as savings, so I'll probably just put like a 2 or 3 on their iPads now and just, what you say, dollar cost average, throw a couple of dollars in each week to them. Build up a bit of a treasury for that so they really get used to it. Who knows, like 10, 20 years, what's going to happen. But try not to be, I think the Dolomites thing got ripped out of the schools now because, product placement into the schools, so it's a bit funny. So I don't know, maybe just trying to change that narrative a bit and look at these things. But like I said, you'd be naive to think that, like I said, they'll be growing up with it. It'll be just second nature.
To move on in the future with that.
So start getting into it now. And
one, actually, just a question popped in my mind as well. I want to kind of know this answer. Deep in the community, right? Whether it's crypto or just Bitcoin or whatever, is there any conversation about what's going to be better in 10 years, Bitcoin or Ethereum, or is it going to be Doge? Is it actually going to do it? Is it going to be Matic? Is there a deep conversation happening?
I wouldn't say deep. There's a lot of opinionated people.
Yeah.
And, some people are just so narrow-minded and just believe it's the one true God that, you can't change them. And, I just got to, just turn my back on those conversations. I mean, they're fun to have, but I don't know, it's kind of like growing up maybe with football that, Melbourne's my team and just always will because Dad told me to go for Melbourne, and he's Dad, and you just can't see any other team. So I think you've still got that mentality with some of the things. But like for me as the engineer, I'm just trying to pick like the technology that makes sense for the client's point of view. Building on Bitcoin, I just say it's 100x. If a client comes to me and says, can you build it on Bitcoin or you can build it on Ethereum? Well, I'll put 2 proposals. One will be 100 times more expensive, so it's up to you.
Yeah.
So doesn't matter. I can build on both, but the engineering effort shouldn't be underestimated on Bitcoin. But yeah, it's good to keep abreast of any technology because it's just so quickly changing, and not be so pigeonholed, because I think you just get left behind in your ways if you're just looking through the lens of one coin. So be across whatever, like, there's, like I said, Matic and all these other ones popping up there. There's some really good technologies there. Even Dash back in the day, storage, library, so many good stuff.
Yeah,
like it's going to be hard. And I guess that's one thing I've kind of reflected on and learned, that I always thought there'd just be one chain and that, but it's not. It's going to be hundreds and hundreds of chains.
And hundreds of different ones. Yeah.
And they're going to be more, not like, it's not going to be like the one internet protocol. It's going to be more like there's hundreds of websites. If you want to go to news, you go to one site. If you want to go to the AFL, go to one site. So if you want a coin for something, that's what you're going to have. And hopefully there's some kind of layers over the top that abstract us from all that, which we're kind of seeing. But I think that's going to be where the future goes, and see them more as websites, not protocols.
No, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Cool. That to me, that's sort of the sort of like, okay, that's where it's sort of going, and it kind of also bolsters my thought of so one is the other. It's more, look, just be in it, get involved, get to know what's going on, because I think it's just going to be a very interesting space, however many years you want to look into the future. So, Lucas, is there anything that if people want to reach out either to you personally, or if they've sort of heard about something around, wanting to know about the community and whatnot, where can they sort of go to maybe understand a bit more? Yeah,
so we've been running the meetup since March 2013. So just meetup.com/Bitcoin Brisbane. We're running a meetup in a couple of weeks about the Traproot soft fork. So that's a place to come along, ask questions. Pick and choose the events. Like I said, I try and tailor them to one subject. So, if you're interested in say the soft fork that's coming up, come along that. We do ones on, basics like 101 and how to buy and back up your keys. If that's what's interesting you, then come along to that, pick and choose. I won't be offended if you don't come to one that doesn't suit whatever. But and there's a few other groups coming up, but that's, we try and run them, between 4 and 6 weeks. So come along and ask the questions, or we're starting to get the Facebook and that kind of socials up. But the meetup's the good place, because a lot of people there that know stuff and can have a yarn and go out for a beer after.
Amazing. Perfect. All right, Lucas. Well, thanks for taking the time, man. I appreciate it. I know you got always lots of stuff running through it, so I appreciate taking the time and having a bit of a chat.
Thanks. It's been fun.
Cheers, mate.